Okay,
So I'm
welcome.
gonna. You can see my annotations, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, I freeze for a moment because at some point we were in a tutorial, I think ICWSM, and then we were bombarded on Zoom when people started annotating things. It was very, very weird.
Oh, okay. Maybe I'll use that sparingly then.
Oh,
Okay.
but it's okay. I think everyone else is disabled for this function.
Okay.
But okay, thank you everyone for coming. Thank you, team, for accepting this invite again. And this is my pleasure. So today we'll listen from Tim Wenninger. He's a Frank Freeman Collegiate Associate Professor at University of Notre Dame. His research mainly focus on social media, machine learning, and network science. And he used properties of this network trying to understand knowledge, human knowledge, how human search for information, spread information, and curate somehow this information. And he tried to understand the nature behind of all these physical phenomena, like how do you relate to each other, how to become parts of groups, and something on these lines. He'll talk more about that. So he's a recipient of the NSF Career Award, the Armed Research Office Young Faculty Award, and he received a lot of grants from the Air Force Office, DARPA, among others. Like I know Tim because we used to work together in a DARPA challenge, and I think it's over now, right? Right? It was a big
It's
project, five
just
years.
wrapping up. I think there's a few more things, but yeah, it's starting to slow down.
Yeah, social sync project. Good times. So Tim, thank you again. And just one more comment. So we can make questions in the end. If you want to make your question, you can write on the chat or just raise your hand and I will unmute you so you can make your question. Okay?
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Diogo. And I want to say on that point, if you have if there's any questions that that come up that Diogo that you see, I won't be able to see them because I'm just going to be looking at kind of focusing on the screen here. But if you see any questions, Diogo, just feel free to interject and then ask the question at any time throughout.
Okay.
It's no problem.
Okay.
So
Just
Diogo,
one more comment. And one more
Yep.
comment. If you are watching this on YouTube, and you can feel free also to use the YouTube chat. I'll be looking there to bring your questions here.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Okay, so Diogo, thank you very much, and it's a pleasure to be here and talking to all of you. I wish I could be there in person. Like I was just talking earlier, I've never been to Exeter before, and I want to try to get out and see Diogo and meet the rest of you. But today I'm going to be talking about some of the research that my lab has been doing, some of the work we've been doing actually with Diogo when he was working at IU. And a lot of the work that we've been kind of focusing over the past, many years in the space of machine learning, AI, and social media. And so what I do is I've taken all of this and I've kind of put it all into a single 40-minute presentation where we're talking about some of the things we're working on. And I call it Fact Fiction in the Newsfeed. So let's get started. The way I want to get started is by first things first is talking about since I'm at an academic institution. This is University of Notre Dame, and since I'm at an academic institution, I want to make sure that I use fancy academic terms. And so the first thing I want to talk about is artificial promotion in the attention economy. So this is something that we've been working on for maybe a decade or more now. What I want to do is kind of define these terms: artificial promotion and attention economy, and what those two things are. So I think the best way to describe the artificial promotion in the attention economy is through an example. And maybe many of you are like me, and nowadays go shopping online. So that's probably the best way to describe this. Now, when you're shopping online, so I actually have my vacuum cleaner broke. This is now a year or two ago. And like any good millennial during a pandemic, I didn't actually go to the store and look on the shelves. The first thing I did is I went to Amazon and I typed in vacuum cleaner on Amazon. And then it gave me back a list of 10 or 15 different vacuum cleaners. And then of course it said there are like 30,000 options to choose from. And here's 15. Now the question is, when you look at these 15, what are the 15 that you see? The 15 that Amazon gives you is extremely important because the 16th item, the one that doesn't appear, doesn't get sold. And so appearing in the top 10, top 5, top 3, the first item is extremely important to the profitability, to the market share of an individual product. And so the question is, how do these things get sorted and ranked? By Amazon. And of course, not just Amazon, but by Walmart and Google and by any other store in any other context. So the way this works typically is the first 2 or 3 or 1 items are sponsored. And so what happens here is this Miley and iLife, they paid, and it's a complicated thing that has its own kind of area for research around it. They paid some money to bid on this spot. And then what ends up happening is if I click on that Miley compact suction canister vacuum, that first thing, Miley gets charged 50 cents or $1. And then, like I said, there's a bunch of research into conversion rates and all that stuff. And the same thing, if I were to click on that iLife robot vacuum cleaner, they would be charged something less, maybe 40 cents, because Miley outbid iLife. And then you have, so because of this, my eyeballs typically skip the first couple of ratings. I don't know if you do that on Google. When I go onto Google and I search for something, I skip, just my eyeballs skip the first 2 because I know they're sponsored and it's not what I want. I want the most organic search result, the one that the algorithm thinks is the best, not the one that paid for the top spot. And so you think about what happens next. So after the sponsor gets out of the way, you can look then at relevance. And so by default, Amazon and other systems try to sell you things based upon relevance. And this is important because Amazon makes money by selling things, and the vacuum cleaner companies make money based on selling things. And so they want to get you and match you the things that are most relevant to what your needs are. So if you put in vacuum cleaner, it'll give you vacuum cleaners. If you put in red vacuum cleaners, it'll try to give you red vacuum cleaners. So that relevance is important, but more important than relevance is this idea of ratings. And so you'll see here that the Bissell Clean View Bagless whatever has 4 point some stars and 9,731 ratings. And that means that 9,000 people have gone on to Amazon and rated this thing, sometimes 4, sometimes 5 stars. And that is a big part of the rating system, a big part of the algorithm to return what vacuum cleaner should you buy. Because Amazon likes it when you're happy with the product. And how are you going to be happy with the product? Well, if other people are happy with the product. And then, of course, you have the dirt devil at the end. Now, the question is, if you are a new vacuum cleaner company, let's say that you are the Hoover company, you are not on the top 10. And because you're not in the top 10, you're not being sold. And because you're not being sold, you aren't going to get any ratings. And so because you're not going to get any ratings, you're not going to be on the top 10. And because you're not on the top 10, you're not getting sold. And it's this vicious cycle of how can I go move up this rating system? Now, one way to do it is to buy an ad. So what you do is you spend a 50 cents per click, and you are Miley Corporation, and you buy an ad on Amazon. That's what Amazon wants you to do. And then slowly over time, you see Miley here has 31 ratings and it's 4.5 stars. Now over time, over a few months, and you're going to spend $100 or $200 or $500,000 buying ads on Amazon. And then eventually, hopefully, you will organically be at the top spot. However, that costs a ton of money. What we want to do instead is we want to be smart about it. We want to spend $50 or $100 and get fake reviews. And this is a big thing that happens over and over and over again. There's entire marketplaces online where you can go and you can say, I'm going to pay you, some random person, $1 or 50 cents to give a review for my vacuum cleaner. And you can see this happening. And the instructions are kind of interesting. It says, leave a skeptical but positive review and make sure it's 5 stars. And so you'll see if you go onto the Bissell or Dirt Devil, you'll see, I didn't think the reviews that were like, I didn't think that the Dirt Devil vacuum cleaner, Simply Stick, lightweight, bagless, corded, whatever, would work for me. But it changed my life. And I love it. 5 stars. And you'll see that over and over and over again, skeptical, but ridiculously positive reviews, 5 stars. And usually those are fake. Because Dirt Devil is trying to game this system to artificially promote their product. And that's the key, artificially promote their product. They don't want to do it through sponsors. They don't want to do it through any kind of other organic method. They want to do it artificially by buying votes. And this is great. Amazon is aware of this problem, and they have entire buildings of people in Seattle that are trying to tackle rating spam. So they're on this problem. Now, that's wonderful, but I don't care about Amazon. What I care about is social media. The same thing that happens on Amazon.com happens on social media as well, where you have ideas, stories, concepts, arguments, pictures and memes and GIFs, but mental ideas. And there's a marketplace of this. There's an economy of sharing these ideas. And it happens in a ranked list where you have on Facebook or on Reddit or on Twitter, the system will give you the top 10 things and you can start scrolling. How does the system show you those top 10 things? Well, based upon how many retweets or likes or shares or votes that it gets. And if you're trying to promote something artificially, what do you need to do? Well, you can buy an ad, but who does that anymore? Or you can ask a handful of your random strangers, or you can get into a group of people that will upvote or share or retweet your system. Or you can create a bot. That's what Diogo was studying, right? Are these bots that will artificially promote these ideas? So that's where I'm interested in. So we care about this, the perceptions of quality and artificial ratings in what I'm calling this attention economy, where you're competing for attention in this economy of ideas. And so that's where artificial promotion in the attention economy comes about. That's a long-winded explanation. Now, what I'm interested in more specifically is what you might call the manipulation of social news. So you have this idea that different news, fact, and opinion comes in online, and that it goes to different sources. So Reddit, Dig, Slashdog, it could be Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, any kind of social media system. Then what ends up happening is what I call an influence attack, where the good guys go and they upvote or they retweet when they retweet, whatever they want. But you have these bad guys that are either bots or motivated, coordinated people who upvote or like or retweet the bad stuff and downvote the good stuff, with the idea of that some regular well-meaning individual sees that, oh, this bad stuff must be popular because everyone apparently, it's getting so many votes, it's getting so many likes, it must be popular. And so they eventually take that as their perspective. And so that's what I'm calling an influence attack. And I should say that I've been studying this for a long, long time. So this is actually back in 2013 when I made this slide. And so I will say the past decade or so have been really exciting in this space, where we have now, this actually started with ISIS back, and this is the reason I made this slide, is because I was watching the rise of ISIS in the Middle East. And then of course, Russia and the United States and China and the Pan-Pacific, the Asian Pacific, have all been using various versions of this social news manipulation, right? So that's where I get started, is based upon this information. So I'm going to pause for a minute and just take a look at this photo. So this was actually from the marriage of Kate and the Prince of England. Kate and Diogo, help me out. Prince William. So I had to put that in there because
I'm not good with the royalness.
Well,
So
you're in England now. You have to
yeah.
keep the royals, right? So this is from the wedding of Kate and William, and everyone's taking a photo because they want to share it to say that they were there. But you still have this one woman right in the middle who's just living life and loving it. Be like her. She's my new favorite person. So what I want to talk about is some of the experiments that we're running to understand this phenomenon. So I'm calling this the social news manipulation. What we want to do is study how this works. And so what we've been doing, well, one of the experiments we did was what was called the vote injection experiment. And the vote injection experiment works like this. I went to different social media sites. I'm going to talk about Reddit for this experiment. And actually, most experiments will talk about Reddit, but the same thing happens we did for Twitter and Slashdot, not Facebook, because Facebook has some different rules. But what I did is I wrote a bot that every 2 minutes went to the site, went to Reddit, for example, and it did it for 4 months, and it got the most recent submission. Because Twitter and Reddit and a couple of these social media sites, they just say, here's the most recent submission. It's just some random whoever post. And then randomly, without looking at the content or the picture or anything, it's just a computer algorithm that randomly upvoted it or retweeted it or downvoted it. Or it did nothing as a control. And so I did this on Reddit, for example, for 4 months. And what ended up happening is I had injected 93,000 votes into the Reddit ecosystem. And the idea here is with one vote, how much impact did I have on the lifespan of that Reddit post? So if I upvoted you, how did that post do compared to if I did nothing? Or if I downvoted you? To see just one vote, how much effect does it have? It turns out a lot. A single vote has a pretty enormous effect in the total lifespan of the eventual outcome of a post. And so we'll see on average, if I upvoted you, it has about 2.5 extra votes. If I downvoted you, it has about 1.5 less votes. Of course, this is on average, but if you talk to any statistician, the averages on these highly skewed data sets is not all that telling. What we really care about is, does it make the front page? Is it in the top 10, right? And so what we ended up doing is looking at, are you in kind of the top? Do you get a ton of votes? So it turns out that if I upvote you initially, you are about 25% more likely to reach the front page, right? And that's just one single vote, one vote. And we can change dramatically the outcome or the probability of the outcome of some post. If I downvote you, it doesn't actually have much of an impact, interestingly. And for comments, so this is for, this over here is for Spotlight. This here is for posts. The same thing over here for comments on Reddit. If I downvote your comment, it'll change things. But if I upvote your comment, it doesn't really change things. Now, why does this happen? And so this is actually known as the Matthew effect. So the Matthew effect is actually sometimes called the cumulative advantage effect or the rich get richer effect. And it all comes from a study that was done like hundreds of years ago. And they quoted the book of Matthew when they were doing this experiments, the psychology experiments, and from the book of Matthew, where Jesus says, "For to everyone who has, more will be given and he will have an abundance." That is essentially saying that if you have a bunch, you're going to get more because you can command more of people's attention. All right, so based upon this, there it goes. A consistent theory is starting to emerge. And this is something we've been working on for a long time now, but really what it comes down to is this idea of visibility bias, a cumulative advantage, rich get richer, the Matthew effect. That is, if you upvote something or retweet something, the algorithm takes that signal and then uses it to increase the ranking of the item. And then more people, if that item gets increased, then more people have a chance to see it. And if more people have a chance to see it, then they have a chance to vote on it themselves. And like I said, this is that Matthew effect. Now, the question that we have is, how easy is it to do these kind of campaigns? So I was able to do it with just one vote because that's all my ethics people would allow me to do. I couldn't actually run a full-on, let's spend some thousands of dollars to actually manipulate social media. But there's some folks from the Guardian newspaper actually in London who took my idea. I gave a TED talk on this. They took my idea, and what they did is they decided to try it for real. And so what they did is they wrote an article about Brexit. And this was, of course, this was back in 2016, before the vote of Brexit. And they wrote this article titled, "Who Needs the EU When We've Got China?" And this article is by Espen Lund, who's a professor at the Bergen School of Economics in Norway. Espen Lund doesn't exist. There is no Bergen School of Economics in Norway. That's fake. Doesn't exist. And at the end of this article, it's actually still online. They actually just pounded on the keyboard. It makes no sense. It's a completely garbage article. But what they did is, I'll tell you what, I will show the video of what they did. So hopefully, Diogo, this will, I'm going to stop sharing. And then I'm going to reshare my entire screen so that everyone can see it. It's much better if I'm in person. We can just do this, but here we go.
Weeks ago, we got 2 made-up stories onto the front page of Reddit for less than $200. Reddit is the 25th most popular website in the world. In the United States, it's the 11th most popular website.
I want to say that this is old now. I think Reddit is number 2, maybe number 3 in the United States, and I think number 7 globally.
In fact, it gets about 230 million unique visitors every month. And for the people that do use it, they check back regularly each day. The idea behind Reddit is simple. Create a community around a particular topic, then submit stories and upvote the good ones and downvote the bad ones. The discussion section works in the exact same way. Upvote insightful comments and downvote the spammers. This system provides news and information for thousands of news blogs and websites all over the internet. It's so influential, it even attracts top celebrities, academics, and even the president. And with so many people taking part in these conversations every day, its influence is actually felt in the real world. Take Bernie Sanders, for example. His unpredictable rise can largely be attributed to Reddit. With so much influence, should we be surprised that people are trying to game the website for their own benefit? I have, for the past 6, maybe 7 months, been actively manipulating what you all see and hear in the news. In general, Redditors trust that their system of upvoting and downvoting protects their conversations from outside influence. But that trust in their content makes them a powerful target for advertisers and any external organization with a particular agenda. Some Redditors have started to suspect that external influences are having an effect on the conversation. Specifically, what I've been studying is a website called Reddit, and I wrote a computer program. Every 2 minutes, goes to reddit.com, gets the most recent post, and randomly, without looking at the title, I upvote it or I downvote it. The results are pretty astounding. If I were to upvote something initially, the final score on average is quite a bit higher than the average score for any post. If I downvote something initially, then the average score is much, much lower than if I would have done nothing at all. Again, this is just one small nudge, one tiny push, and I can change what happens online. So could a company get organized and start to have an impact on the news that gets through to our newsfeed each morning? Me and Tim caught up via Skype.
It only takes 3 or 4 or 5 votes to have a sizable impact. So if you can control 3 or 5 votes, that is, if you have 5 people working in some firm, then that can do a lot of work.
It seems incredible, but Tim's research shows that just a small number of accounts can have a massive impact on these subreddits. And this exact scenario actually played out in the Bitcoin subreddit. Bitcoin is a cryptocurrency that has ambitions to replace the cash in our wallet. And we spoke to the moderator of the subreddit, Pacheco. He told us that people supportive of Bitcoin's vision were being automatically downvoted every single time they posted. And for Redditors that were critical of Bitcoin's vision, they were being automatically upvoted. All of the usernames you can see here have been targeted in an automated attack. We were impressed with Pacheco's research and we were impressed with Tim's research, but we wanted to test it ourselves. So we started an investigation to see how easy it would be to buy fake Reddit accounts.
Hello.
Hey, how you doing? Thanks for answering my call. So I believe that you sell Reddit accounts. Is that true?
Yes,
Great. So where do you buy your accounts from? I'm interested to know.
I have different platforms like Black Hat World, some from Bitcoin form.
Which are the best accounts I can buy from you?
It depends on your work. If you want to post in a video subreddit, little strong.
Yeah.
If you want to post in news subreddit,
Yeah.
world, then you need more strong.
Thank you so much for helping me understand how it works.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Easy as that. In less than an hour, we bought multiple fake accounts and hundreds of upvotes for less than $200. Now we needed a story.
So they spent $200. And that's his professor uniform.
Character, Espen Lund. He's a professor of economics from a Norwegian university. And we submitted a terrible, factually inaccurate story to media. We submitted the story to Reddit United Kingdom with our fake accounts and used upvotes to get it to hit the front page. We made a positive case for Brexit and started a conversation about that topic on the UK subreddit. The headline stayed in its high position for a number of hours, and Tim Wenninger explained to us why this is important.
Now I'm going to explain to you why this is important. 1 second while I get back to the. So, right. So you can see my screen again, Diogo, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, great. So, and this is important too, because if this goes back to this idea of attention economy, right? So if you can get something, an idea up into the top position, then other people have a chance to see it, comment on it, and that drives the conversation. If it drives the conversation, just like advertising or any kind of marketing that you would want to do, the information that you put in front of people is what they see, and what they see is how they think. And if you can drive what they see through with $200 in the UK subreddit, then you can control what people are talking about. And so that is, and of course, as more people see it, then more people have a chance to share it and upvote on it, and it grows and grows and grows. Now, they actually, if you continue watching the video, I just stopped it early. They actually did the same thing so UK subreddit is smallish, maybe only a few million people. But there's a video subreddit where they actually made a season 3 trailer for Narcos. Has anyone seen Narcos? I don't know, but it was like, I think it's a Netflix or HBO series. There is no season 3, but they made like a season 3 thing, spent this $200 again, and got it up at the top of the videos subreddit. And at the end, HBO had to come out and say, there is no season 3 of Narcos. So it's as simple as that. And you can kind of drive the conversation. Again, the ethics prevented me from doing this myself, but it was interesting to watch other people take my research and then potentially do it in a different way. And this actually gets to a broader question, which is, does social media show its users the content they want to see? Or is it all just vote spam? Right, that's the question. How good, if you consider the social media system, Facebook, Twitter, Reddit, as a kind of an an algorithm, a classifier algorithm, a recommender system, then the question is, does it actually work? How do you evaluate the goodness of this recommender system, of this classifier? Right? So that's the question I want to ask. Do voting systems work? So the way we want to do this is we designed a second experiment. Sorry, guys. We designed a second social rating experiment where the mailman's here. Sorry. Where we took 2 posts on Reddit or on Facebook. Imager is another one we used. And we asked people which was more popular, the one on the left or the one on the right. And we asked people to do this. And then, of course, we made this a game where you got to pick, this was one question, then we got to pick a second question. And of course, if they get it wrong, then we tell them it's wrong. And if you get it right, you tell them it's right. And at the end, we ask these types of questions for all sorts of different GIFs or images or videos. So this is at Notre Dame in Michigan here. Which is more popular? Which one do you prefer to see online? And then what we did is we made it, like I said, made it a game and we shared it online, and about 150 or so thousand people played this game, which is great. So we get 100,000 people playing this game, sharing it with their friends, so we can get data on can people distinguish which item got more popular on social media. If you can distinguish between, Bernie Sanders got more votes than Joe Biden, then that means that there's something about that video that is of higher quality than the video on the right. And so we did this experiment and we asked, well, how well did people do? Now, of course, remember that by default, it's 50-50 guess, right? Are you getting the answer correct? Did you accurately predict which question, if you randomly pick, if you close your eyes and you pick left or right, you're gonna get 50% accuracy. Now, so how well do people do? Well, it turns out about 52%. So that is to say, simply put, is that there was almost no relationship between what people want to see and what they actually see on social media. If you ask them, which picture do you prefer? It's 52%. If you ask people, which person do you think got more votes, as that kind of prediction question, it's about 52.5%. Right? And this really kind of was depressing. If you take something that was, 100,000 likes and something that had just, 10 likes, and you can't tell the difference between the two, then that means that social media systems are doing a very poor job at recommending things that we want to see. Right? And so that's a big problem. Now, we asked a further question. This is on Facebook, Reddit, and like I said, we're going to focus on Reddit today because I think it just tells a singular story. We asked people who did our survey. At the end of the survey, it's like, are you on social media all the time? Do you submit things to social media? Do you comment and vote? And basically, are you a power user? So I'm calling these like Facebook power users or Reddit experts. And I think there was like, of the people who we asked, 63 people said that they were super users. They do all the things on Reddit, do all the things on Facebook. And 122 people answered no to all the questions. Basically, they're not social media users in any kind of form. And so we said, okay, people who answered yes, are they better guessers than the people who answered no? Right? People who use social media all the time, maybe they will be better at this task than the non-users. And it turns out that heavy users or super users were no more accurate than non-users. In fact, if I believe correctly, the average of non-users was slightly better, not statistically significant, whatever, but I think it was like 52.001 versus 51.9 or something. So the non-users were slightly better, but not again, the statistical significance is not there than the power users. So what does this mean? Suffice to say, there's no relationship between a post's goodness its quality, and its eventual popularity. Recommender systems, the social media recommender systems are just not good at this stuff. So what now? What do we do? So this was kind of old. This is maybe 2 or 3 years old now. And what we ended up doing after that is we said, okay, what can we do? We need to find out more information about this problem so that we can try to fix it. And so what we did is we designed yet another experiment, a social experiment that looked at this idea of, okay, fake news is being shared everywhere. Why? Where is it coming from? We understand some of the problems with attention economy and artificial promotion, but we want to get a deeper sense of what's actually happening in front of a user. How are they actually browsing this information? So what we did is, well, this is the punchline, is that it's pretty much our fault. So Diogo can blame bots. We can blame spammers. But the punchline here is that it's really our fault. And I'll tell you why in a minute. So what we decided to do is we installed a browser plugin on the phones and on browsers of 309 users. And so basically what this worked is that the way this worked is that the people who played our Guess the Karma game, we asked them to just install a thing to help us with science. So of the 100,000 people, 309 of them downloaded our plugin, which is not probably the best response rate, but still, 300 people, we can kind of track everything they're doing online. And so what we learned is that of these 309 users, there was 1.8 million votes and clicks and shares and retweets and likes that resulted, that we were able to collect. So a few of the things that we were able to find is that most people don't vote. Most people don't click on anything. They go to the site, you go to Reddit, they go to Facebook, and they just browse. So they just take, like, I remember actually talking to my wife the other day, and she was actually like, she had her phone up, and she was kind of scrolling up. And then I asked her a question. She looked up at me and she was talking to me, having a conversation with me, but she was still scrolling on her phone, which is a thing that we do. We just scroll on our phones. It's some kind of tactile motion that we do. We just kind of browse. So most people are headline browsers. Most people don't vote. Most browsing sessions result in almost no likes, retweets, shares. We just scroll. Now, interestingly, when people do vote, when they do like, retweet, share, upvote, when they insert these votes, they do so without actually reading the post. So 74% of all votes, I'm calling a vote as some kind of share, like, retweet, some kind of interaction with the system that is a vote. 74% of votes occurred without the user ever viewing the post. They see the headline, they like the headline, and that's it. They see the headline and then they upvote the headline. So on Reddit, it was 74%, on Twitter, it was 75%, and on Facebook, it was 96% of people they look at the comment and they vote. They share it, like it, whatever. And then we wonder, where's all this fake news coming from, right? And it turns out that your votes matter. You are the editor of your friend's newsfeed. And that's an important responsibility that I don't think we all understand that we have, but it's an important point. Visibility bias is huge. Most people don't read most things. 7% of all clicks and upvotes and even downvotes on Reddit went to the top post. Right, so 7% of all activity, and then it follows this kind of diminishing returns in a power law long tail version, whereas 7% and then 3.5%, and then it kind of divides by 2 for every rank after that. And then there's also this weird kind of at the end here, there's an upward trend right at the end. The trend goes up. And it turns out that a handful of people, like 10% of the users, actually scroll to the bottom and they browse up. I don't know if anyone here does that, but it's kind of a weird, strange thing where people scroll to the bottom of the page and then browse from the bottom up. I don't know why that is. I have some ideas, but that's something that we saw that was kind of interesting. Move my annotator here. Okay, so this is some of the experiments we did. to find out that how people were browsing. We've learned all of the problems with how people and algorithms work with social media. So what now? What are we going to do about it is the question. So I have Tim's incomplete list of things that won't help. So fact checking, sorry, don't like it. By the time something is fact checked, it's over. Everyone's already seen it. And also when you're fact checking something, you have to repeat the lie in order to check the lie. That's a whole problem. Censorship. This has been kind of working and kind of not. What ends up happening when you censor something is that people find other sources and they just drive them into the deep, dark places of the web. So censorship, there's some benefit that we're finding recently about how to censor things and remove things that is working, but generally speaking, we're still trying to figure that out. Shaming also doesn't work. Has anyone ever had an argument on Facebook and then you called the person names, and at the end of that argument, that other person totally changed their mind? Such a thing has never happened in the history of social media, right? That doesn't work. So what am I doing to fix things? What I'm doing is media literacy. My goal, especially in young democracies where the internet is just now becoming a thing, is to identify the vectors of misinformation and then adapt social media literacy programs that appear currently in like high schools and junior highs in person, and put those kinds of things online. Because one of the things that we've learned is that the kids will be all right. Anyone who grew up in social media knows that most of the stuff on social media is garbage. But it's the older folks, the folks who don't really know how this works that well, those are the folks that we have to kind of reach, especially if someone hands you a phone and you've never heard of the internet before, you start scrolling all this information, you don't understand what it means and how it got there. So what we want to do is to adapt social media literacy for folks who are just now getting social media literacy campaigns for people just now getting social media, deploy those campaigns, and then measure how effective they are. So we've done this. We did this for the Indonesian presidential elections of last year. We find there's a ton of kind of different images and stuff that are shared online. Interestingly, we actually have another system that we're developing that tracks these images. And so we learned there's a lot of political memes that are shared. So this over here on the left is President Joko Widodo. This is a meme that was shared where he has the infinity gauntlet and he's snapping his fingers and the opposition is fading away, right? That's kind of interesting. This is an obvious fake image, right? No one takes this seriously as like an actual thing. The one on the right is translated to be, "Don't let this happen." This is Subianto standing in the front, and we don't want Subianto, we don't want Indonesia to become a client state of China. That's what this meme is trying to say, right? These kind of political memes are obviously fake, but they're meant to send an interesting message. And our goal is to track this messaging, find out if there's any influence campaigns being used and submitted and coordinated through imaging. And so these, of course, were obviously fake, but there's some that are more sinister. So what we see here is what is essentially a TikTok star who is making a video that is talking about whatever she was talking about, but she has this finger and thumb motif, which was superimposed onto the image, saying that this TikTok star is actually intending to vote for number 2 on the ballot. Now, before I did this analysis, I didn't know that finger and thumb meant I support Subianto. I have no problem with Subianto. I don't know his politics at all. But this person does not support Subianto. This meme is going around saying that she does. And this is something that we see all the time, is that these motifs of fingers and thumbs, especially in the Indonesian context, are used to say that, to identify or to be these kind of political campaigns. We find the same thing here where this is President Subianto bowing to this Chinese symbol, right? Where the Chinese symbol was actually superimposed. It was, this image was altered to say that Subianto loves China so much. So what we're trying to do is take all that we've learned, find these images and not share them, but show how this manipulation is happening. And we have this literata.id as a social media literacy campaign where you can go here. And if you're an Indonesian, if you understand Bahasa, you're Indonesian, you can go here and we have videos and content and even a game that tries to teach you all the different ways that people are manipulating social media to trick you, to trick the everyday user. And so here's an idea of the game. You can kind of log in, and it takes a form of a family WhatsApp chat, and it's how to navigate your crazy uncle sharing fake news. How do you confront that? How do you navigate that in different ways? And then, of course, we have explainer videos that say, here are things that are happening in social media, and here's why it's fake and why you should be aware of it. And of course, we have lots of these videos all over. And the idea is that we want to advertise this. We want to take these videos, put it in front of people. We do it in the proper way. We actually buy advertisements on Twitter and Facebook and WhatsApp and Reddit and so on. So far in the past 9 months, we've received about 100 million impressions. 100 million people have seen our ads, with about 100,000 people have clicked through and have played the game and gone to the website. So pretty good so far. There's a lot more work to do. Now, the effect of this, we actually called 1,000 people on the phone and then shared. Then, of course, we tracked if they went to they viewed our content or not. And then we called them again a few weeks later to see, okay, now that you saw our content, are you a better internet user? Are you able to identify misinformation? It turns out that the visitors to our site, were twice as likely to identify misinformation news headlines, which that's a huge win. So that's great. Not in this experiment, but more recently, we also learned that people who went to our website were significantly less likely to share misinformation, but that's not included in this analysis. So suffice to say, social media literacy programs are making a big impact. It's not a panacea, it doesn't fix everything, but it's making a big impact in instances where people are just now coming online and they need to learn about the promise and peril of social media. So with that, I'm out of time. I'm actually a little bit long, so I apologize for that. I want to thank my group for some of their work here. I have a bunch of my Rockstar students in my current lab and my sponsors here. One more thing before I leave is that I also, if you've heard of this Crash Course YouTube video, which is just now celebrating 100 million views, they're done by these two gentlemen. There's a Crash Course Artificial Intelligence, which is been out now for a few months. If you're interested, I am the producer and writer of this series. And so if you're interested in doing a Crash Course Artificial Intelligence, check this out. Hopefully it might be useful for some of your learning or in your courses. So with that, it's been my pleasure talking to you all. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Tim. It was really, really amazing. I think we have already a question here in the chat. It's just a comment. Okay, so if anyone wants to make a question, you can raise your hand. I can unmute you while you do that, or just write your question on the chat. And as soon as you were speaking about, like, right at the beginning, bad people, we are trying to get bad people because bad people is spreading misinformation and all this stuff. And eventually you came up and said, no, it's bad people, but it's us, right? Like I have several groups, WhatsApp groups, and I every day receive lots of misinformation, and I'm pretty sure there's no bot there or family members. And even though you try to come up with literacy and even showing this is the fact, they keep spread. I think it's something even more innate to us. Like in the past, we used to receive these email threads, like share this. If you share this with 10 friends, then a good thing will happen, so on and so forth. But at some point in our history or digital history, these people was drawn to some sort of group, and now they just share whatever they receive or they are asked to. So how can we fix that?
Yeah, so that's the question, right? fixing human behavior is interesting. I think it takes kind of a cultural shift. There's a few answers to that. One thing is it takes a culture shift, is that it should be seen as, and this is difficult, right? Because no one wants to confront their crazy uncle. They just want to, like, you go to the Thanksgiving or Christmas dinner and your uncle's there and you just kind of let him, whatever, he's doing his thing. Now within your family group, you're going to get those things, and it's reasonable to just say, to call them out and say, stop, this is annoying, right? Please stop. That works most of the time. If you just say, hey, please stop sharing this. This is annoying. That'll work. Another thing that works, another thing that's very important too, is that when you're getting into a comment or an argument on Facebook or on your WhatsApp channel, it's important to know that you are probably not going to change that person's mind, right? If someone believes that Donald Trump or Joe Biden did something and it's not true, or Boris Johnson, if you're over in England, if Boris Johnson is in cahoots with the Chinese, or I don't know what the current misinformation of England is, you're not gonna be able to convince them. But what you can do is you can do what's called Snopesing. You just take it, you go to Snopes or factcheck.org or PolitiFact, and you just put the link in there to say this is not true. You're not going to convince that person, but what you're going to do is you're going to convince all of the other readers that this is not true. People who, so if a lie goes unchallenged, then other people might start believing the lie. But if you challenge the lie, again, you're not going to convince your uncle, but you'll convince your undecided aunt and your cousins and your brothers and your sisters that this is garbage. Uncle Joe is indeed a crazy, right? Don't disregard everything he says. If you don't challenge it, then other people will say, oh, this must be, that's the same thing, like, oh, it's got 1,000 votes. No one's challenging it. It must be true. And so that's a thing to keep in mind. And that's something that we're trying to teach in this. If you go to the Check Facta or the Galifacta game, the same kind of thing. It's how to nicely confront your crazy uncle in a WhatsApp group with evidence-based practices. It's tough, but it's important to know that you can't change your uncle's mind. That's not your goal. Your goal is to change other people's minds.
Okay, I'll keep trying. I think I have more crazy uncles than
everyone has the crazy uncles. That's fine.
Chico has a question. I think let's see if I can unmute you. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, Tim, for the talk. I think it's really good that you raised this point right now in the end about evidence-based practices, because it's so easy for us to just kind of fall for what seems believable in our bubble. Like it's, people who are curious about misinformation, etc. It's very easy for us to just fall for some, for kind of just so stories. But anyway, the question I have is not about that. So first, in the study where you were asking people which was more popular, weren't you asking what people think that others would vote for rather than what they personally want to see? Because for instance,
that's a very good question. And I was not clear in my presentation on that. I asked both questions. And so I asked, the first question was, which one do you prefer to see? Which one would you vote on? Which one do you think is most interesting? And then they would say left or right. And then it would say, okay, now which one do you think got more likes on Facebook? So we would ask both questions for the same. So it's actually a two-part question. Now, and it's interestingly in voting theory and voting ranking literature, asking, if you call a person on the phone and say, who do you want to vote for, Labor or conservative? Asking them that question will give you one answer. And then asking the question, who do you think is going to win the election, Labor or conservative, will give you a different answer. And it turns out that asking who do you think is going to win is a much higher predictor of who is actually going to win. So that's right, we asked both questions. So there is there's decades of theory built upon each of these things that I only have 40 minutes to talk about. So
second question is super short. So on the Indonesian media literacy study,
Yeah.
did you control for causality? Because people who already think critically about media are more likely to be interested in a media literacy website and are more likely to separate misleading headlines from others.
So yes, we did. We did an RCT. And so what we did is we called people online, we called people on the phone, and we asked them a series of questions about here's some fake and some misleading stuff, and here's some true stuff. And then we said, what is the propensity of this person to share misinformation and believe misinformation? It was like, I think it was 5 different questions basically. And then we texted them. We asked them if they'd be interested in doing this thing. We texted them, and then we came back a week later. And the people who actually went to the site, who actually answered the text, because we sent a code with the text as well, we asked them the same questions kind of over, not only a different set of questions, but the similar questions. And the people who did not go to our website, we called them and asked the separate set of questions. So it was an RCT. And yeah, there's causality that is in this. So that's a good question. So yeah, we had thought about that. And again, like I said, in 40 minutes, I can't go through all those details, but yeah.
We have two more questions on the chat. So the first one is from Alex Gulliver. He asks, what do you think about Instagram tries of removing how many likes can be seen on some people's posts?
Yeah, it doesn't really matter a whole lot. So we've actually looked at this a little bit. So Reddit did something similar to that about 3 years ago, and it didn't have much of an impact in the whole kind of ranking bias problem. One thing that social media systems are starting to do now is based upon our actual research is Twitter and Facebook are actually now prompting you to read the thing before you're allowed to retweet it. And so I don't know if Twitter's rolled it out for everyone yet, but for certain individuals in their test that's currently ongoing, if you are scrolling through and you say, yes, retweet, it'll say, hold on there, you didn't actually read this thing. Consider reading it before you retweet it. And so that's actually a warning that Twitter will give you now. Not for everyone, but I think just for some people. Facebook, and this is actually, I don't know how widely this is known, but if you like or comment on something without reading it, it will show up, but it won't count in the algorithm. So it'll say that you liked it, but it won't count. Like the algorithm, the ranking system will disregard that vote. So this is some of the impact that we're having, I guess, in social media kind of software systems. But we're learning, we're getting better. We're trying to figure out the problem so we can make small adjustments to how things are done. So.
Yeah, so the talk is really good, the conversation is really good, but we are already over time. So I have one more question here, and it's related to the future. So Marcos comment that he agrees that the younger generation know better how to separate like good and bad stuff, but the youngs will become old. So what do you think is going to be the future of misinformation?
Yeah, the future of misinformation. What I think is going to happen is every time we have a new media source that is created in the history of the world, there's growing pains. There's a good 30, 40, 50 years of adjustment. So when the printing press came out, people were printing all sorts of garbage. And then when newspapers first kind of came out, there were all sorts of garbage newspapers. And then people like, this is stupid, this is garbage, I'm not going to read it anymore. And it kind of self-corrected because there were people like us, Diogo and Notre Dame and IU and people at Exeter who are working on this problem, trying to figure it out. And then we'll get it, I think, under control. And then what will happen is that some new thing is going to come along and blow everything up again. So it's going to be a constant battle of how humans read and consume information in a new modality. And as that comes up and grows of age, people are going to find ways to manipulate it and game it for their own purposes. And then the systems, the editors, the publishers, the CEOs will figure out how to make it better because Facebook and Instagram, they have a vested interest. And if people stop going to Facebook because they see that's just full of garbage, then Facebook is going to lose market share. There's a capitalistic interest in Facebook fixing this problem. My goal is to help understand the problem so that they can fix it. So I'm optimistic in this space. I think we'll figure it out for the next 40 years, and then something will come along and blow everything up again. So I hope I'm not wrong. I hope I'm not proven wrong.
Yeah, and I'm kind of optimistic as well. Like there's no way this can be sustainable the way it is. So it's going down at some point. It has to change, right?
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like it has to be either we course correct or society just kind of falls apart, right? So we don't really have a choice to fix it.
Okay, thank you, team. It was very, very nice, very thought-provoking, and like many of you, I saw that you guys enjoyed and said a lot of comments on the chat. So if you have ideas on how to combat misinformation, you want to do research on this, please reach out, and we have a lot to do. And for all the others, if you have any suggestions about other topics, because I think the last two seminars was somewhat related to misinformation. If you want to hear anything else, just reach out as well. So to give your suggestion, we can find other subjects or other speakers here. Thanks, Tim.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure chatting with you. And like I said, if anyone has any questions, use my email's up on the site, and Diogo knows how to get a hold of me. So happy chatting with you all, and hopefully I can see you sometime this spring or summer. I'll talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye-bye.